So, what happened?
I'm telling you, there was a shooter on that water tower.
There was a shooter on that roof.
If you look hard enough, you got to be in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
But if you look really hard, in fact, if you zoom in, and the more pixelated it gets, the more you can be certain there's someone on the water tower. Hi, everyone. How was your week? So I've been looking non-stop at that water tower, as you can tell. No, I'm kidding. There's no one on the water tower. That didn't happen.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I admit, though, there was a point early on where I suspected it because, it's a high vantage point.
Well, reasonable place to look at, yeah, for sure. But so what are we talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. Water tower? What?
All along the watchtower, Trump, sum of all fears, assassination.
Oh,
Trump. The thing we've been talking about, everyone's talking about it all week long.
Are you sure everybody's talking about it? I don't know if everybody's talking about it.
Well,
anyway,
conspiracy theorists like us, that's all we do. We talk about assassinations.
So, yeah, Trump
Right.
was assassinated, right? No, he wasn't actually assassinated. He was nearly assassinated, and we talked about this last week, right? Anyway, it had happened, hadn't it? Yeah, it was Saturday night.
But there's still a lot of mileage in it. So.
It's done and dusted. It was some dude, some young, nerdy type dude who just hated Trump. There's a lot of those around. And he just got up and decided to kill him. No?
And missed an end of story.
Yeah. I mean, obviously going to miss because he's a nerdy dude, right? So
No, what gives it away that something's afoot, something bigger than a nerdy 20-year-old, is the behavior of the officials explaining why they couldn't see him when 150, 200 people below could see him and were recording and filming and photographing him. So that's just obviously anomalous.
really lack security.
So again, well, the classic thing is it's extreme incompetence or it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy,
Yeah.
obviously.
Occam's razor, yeah.
Occam's razor is,
Well, yeah, you put it... in
especially
context.
then as she kept talking, when she was asked why the head of, that's another interesting thing. I mentioned names last week.
Cheetle, yeah.
Cheats, Crooks, Cheetle.
Cheats and Crooks.
Cheats and Crooks.
I call her Sheedy, but whatever.
Well, yeah, so we had people in the area and, we don't like to take risks for their safety. So the roof was a bit sloped. So we made a decision to secure the building from the inside. What the fuck does that mean? Secure the building from the inside? I haven't heard anything so... It actually reminded me of Silverstein about his insurance contract on the Twin Towers in 9/11.
So...
We made a decision to pull it.
Yeah. And then you had to try and explain what he meant by pull it.
Well,
It
he
had
never
nothing to
did. That
do
was
with-
the end of it. Cheadle's still in the job. She hasn't had to follow up on that. I mean, that is obviously what she's saying. She thinks that that's it. End of. But that's ridiculous.
She's saying that we had instead of putting
like this.
instead of putting people on the roof, they put them in the building to secure the building inside.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody would want to get, in case there might be a shooter inside the building,
Well,
using one of the windows.
yeah. But I think she's letting on more than she realizes when she said that. People have been wondering where a second shooter will come from. We saw yesterday, I don't know who it was, someone was interviewed on a podcast. I can bring it up here if I can find the link for it. But he had a good idea that there was possibly someone in the building behind the roof top that Crooks was on. But when we played out the shot, the trajectories of where that shooter's bullets would hit in the bleacher beyond Trump, it didn't line up. They would end up hitting roughly in the middle of it. Wherever any potential second shooter is, he must be. His bullets must end up at the right of that bleacher. In fact, his bullets, if they're distinct from the shots fired by Crooks, must be on the same trajectory, or close to it, very close to it. But it gave me the idea, or gave you the idea, that there could be a shooter below Crooks, assuming one of the windows below his position on the nearest building to the stage.
Yeah.
Had line of sight of Trump.
The image you're talking about, or when you're talking about, but the image, this image that maybe you have something to say about this image that relates to that.
Oh, for sure. So this is odd. This image was put out in the media on last Sunday, so the day after, right? Yes, within 24 hours. What's interesting is the caption. I don't have one to hand, but the caption I read in the New York Post publishing this photo was, here's a photo of the suspected gunman in the failed Trump assassination, Thomas Matthew Crooks, obtained by the Washington Post from Beaver County Police Department. Beaver County is right next to Butler County in northern Pennsylvania. I'm like, that's interesting, because the shirt he's wearing is from the day of. That's what he's wearing. That's probably taken on the day. How did local police force get that photo? Who took it? Specifically, in fact, the particular caption I read, shared by the Washington Post and the New York Post, was that the photo had been taken by Beaver County Police Force. So, hello, that's obviously taken from the air. He's wearing the T-shirt on the day of. So they got this freaking close to him.
Well, interestingly,
before he had a rifle in his hand on the ground, that's grass behind him.
Yeah, well, interesting. If you click on the tweet on the right, there's just to bring up the tweet, the follow tweet on the right. So the guy looked at it and said, "Our cues are the concrete wall and the grass." So he's assuming here that this is taken on the day. It's obviously daytime. It's hard to tell. It's obviously during the day at some point of the rally, and his cues are the concrete wall and the grass. So he's assuming he's in the area. And if we search from Google Earth, there are many places where this could be, but also draw attention where this could be, and also draw the attention of law enforcement, because the picture was taken by law enforcement. Okay, so he gives a best candidate for where he was, where this picture was taken from, and where this picture of Crooks is that he's at this junction of this building, and that building in front is obviously the building that Crooks was eventually on. So he's putting him right beside the building that he eventually climbed onto, and then there's a tweet below that. Is there, Scotty? Just go down. So then you can see the wall also in this video. So there's a wall along that building, and it's about the same height with the grass, etc. And then, so he thinks that if in the next tweet below that, if you just
keep going, because that's the video, and there's a screenshot from this video, which is, we'll return to that video actually. It's useful.
Under replies, show replies.
Show replies.
Okay, so basically he's saying that, as we saw previously, that the picture of Crooks was taken right at the corner of that building below where that arrow is, and that the location of Crooks was at the corner of that building on the grass beside a wall that runs alongside the building, and that the picture was taken from the window of that building. Now that, interestingly, is the building that the Secret Service Cheedy woman changed her story to say that SS agents, Secret Service personnel were in that building. Previously, she had said, or it was alleged that she had said, that they were in the building in front, which is the building that Crooks was on to shoot at, from which he shot at Trump. But then it's been changed to that building. So that would suggest that police and or SS now, took a picture of Crooks at some point during the day and had some, I don't know, suspicious of what he was doing, maybe wandering around. He looked like a suspicious character. They take a picture of him.
Which will completely contradict the story that, they only became aware of him after he's climbed on the roof. Right. And right before he's taken shots.
Yeah, and the question is, maybe because he's suspicious looking or whatever. But anyway, it says that they were in that building. Now, that building was also, like Neil was saying earlier on, was a building that it was, some people theorized that there was a shooter from that building that shot towards the stage. But in terms of the people who were, the guy who was killed, Compatore, and the other two people who were shot in the stands, that line of sight from that building doesn't really line up with the trajectory of the bullets.
Yeah, even if you see where the arrow's pointing and you go all the way to the opposite end, it's still not far enough to the right to line up a shot that will hit Dutch and Copenhagen in the top right of the stand, the bleachers behind Trump. That's the key part of trying to figure out where other shots could have come from, because they have to line up with where the people were injured, not just with getting it to whiz past Trump's head, but where we know bullets actually hit afterwards.
Yeah, so probably a better explanation of what actually may well have happened. And again, we're obviously going on theory here that Crooks wasn't the only shooter for various reasons, which we'll explain in a minute. But a better version of it is this picture here. If you scroll down and open the picture, this picture, we're fairly sure that we've looked at it. We're fairly sure that Crooks was on the right hand, right of center of that building, looking at it from the stage, from where Trump was.
No thanks to the media.
No.
Let's just pause and say, because they're still putting out completely different graphics where he's either on the left or the right. Holy shit. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of them putting it out where he's on the left.
But yes, he's on the right.
It's pretty clear that he's on the right because we've looked at a different video and we can see that he's actually, on the left of that building as you're looking at it there, there's video of him where you can see him, and we had questions over whether or not people on the ground would be able to see him from with a phone camera if he was that far over on the right. People on the left, and could you actually see him? But we had a look at it and using various different tools, and the people in the videos where you can actually see Crooks on the building, the short video, you can see him lying there, and people are saying he's got a gun, etc. The person taking that video was more or less at the tree to the left of that building, the second tree back from the left to the left of that building, which is about 40 yards from the building. So at 40 yards from a relatively low building like that with a sloped roof, you can actually see someone on the far side. You can see kind of longitudinally along the line of the building. You're able to see that far back, and those people were under that tree, which, as I said, is about 40 meters.
You can see the tree overhang in their shot.
Yeah.
Just a note that where it spells out Crooks, he's actually on the back slope.
Yes.
So he's taking a bit of cover from sniper positions,
but not much
behind
obviously.
Trump.
But obviously, yeah. So, so our basic theory is that one of those two buildings, or one of those two windows in the building below Crooks, and the building that Crooks was on, that there was a shooter in either one or other of those two windows, because both of them provide accessible line of sight to Trump, and would account for the shooting of the two people. Like the end of the two white lines there, one or other of them was the line of fire, and they can easily converge on the top of that near stand or bleacher where two people were hit by bullets, and then also on the bleacher closest to the building where Crooks is, you had the what was his first name? I can't remember.
Corey Comparatori.
Corey Comparatori. He was killed, but basically the chronology of it is, and we'll show you. Listen to some audio in a minute. But the chronology of it is that the shooter in the building in one or other of those two windows right below Crooks, fired the first three shots that you hear in fairly quick succession, but not rapid fire, but like bang, bang, bang. First bullet missed Trump and may or may not have hit one or other of the two guys up in the stand. The second bullet obviously missed Trump, and the third bullet missed Trump, but one of those three bullets, two of those three bullets hit the two guys up in the stand, and the same bullet, or one of the third bullet, whatever, missed Trump. But it was the first bullet obviously that missed Trump, so it doesn't really matter what sequence that happened in, because they all happened within basically about a 1 to 2 second sequence. And then once those three shots had been fired, meant to kill Trump, but injuring people in the stands, then Crooks took that as that was his signal, let's say, or provoked him, and he fired off the 5 other more rapid fire shots about 2 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds after those first 3 shots were fired. And it's likely that one of those 5 bullets killed Corey Comparatori in the front, in the stand closest to the building where Crooks is. So that's basically the analysis of it. The only other aspect to it is the audio. So
can I just test something? Let's just test our own thing there. One question I would have with this idea is that a shooter at the ground floor level, he's got a couple of obstacles, not the trees, but you've got the telehandler holding up the right speaker, right of Trump, and you've got the bleacher, which is has some, an angle on it there, a rise. Can someone in the ground floor in either of those end windows see through that?
Through which?
Through the telehandler / the bleacher.
Well, yeah, the telehandler is just like telehandler isn't a block, you know what I mean? It's an arm.
Yeah, it's a small obstacle at a distance, so you can just adjust slightly.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And the bleacher, the stand, that first stand?
Yeah, the bleachers are very low. They're at ground level. Now, if you look at the window is obviously above ground level. But the angle, I mean, it may be possible. Maybe that the left-hand window there, the one closest to centre in the building that Crooks is on, is the one that is the most, one that has
better line of sight.
Better line of sight towards Trump. But I think either of them would have likely worked because even the right-hand one, the bleachers aren't very high, and the building and the window is obviously, and you could be like slightly elevated around the window as well. So, and Trump is obviously at ground level plus 3 or 4 feet on the stage, So someone lying or standing, that window, you can see the window is maybe half up the building. The building's maybe about 10 feet tall to the roof. So like lying up in the upper portion of the window, whatever you're talking about, 5 or 6 feet above the ground, basically. So, but anyway, the point is you can have a slightly upward trajectory in a bullet. You don't have to. Everything doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. You know what I mean? Someone can be slightly above
the
or slightly.
Basic trajectory has to match Crooks's. And then people will ask, but then how will they get away? Well, look at it. There's a car park there. The front door is just sort of right there with the little overhang roof. You see at the right end of the building. Out the front door into a waiting car and through the car park, and there's a road there. You go left or right, and then you go, well, was no one there? No. Remember what they told us all week long? Remember the Pac-Man shaped security perimeter? It goes around in a big circle, and then it makes a big fucking detour in that building. That whole area was considered not of concern,
right? Because it was being held or occupied by quote unquote Secret Service agents. Now, Secret Service agents can come in various different shapes and sizes, let's say, or
police, because each side is passing it off to the other.
Right. But official looking people, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's not hard for people, in terms of the kind of people we're talking about, for them to appear official looking, and they may well actually be official looking. They may have access to various passes and stuff. And obviously, you're talking about military trained personnel here, so and probably people from within the system, so they certainly have an ability to pass themselves off as part of the security at the event and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So it's kind of child's play in that respect.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's keep it simple, stupid. Basically, it's no water tower, no.
It's clean. It's clean because it follows the trajectory. It's the same distance. You won't have any anomalies show up in the final, when it is finally done, who knows when, ballistics analysis. They'll be like, well, no, they all came from the same distance. Yeah. But if one was slightly different, you've got the potential for 2 people firing along the same line of sight.
Yeah. Now, have a listen to this. We'll have to stop it and start it a few times, maybe. Go ahead. And you know that's a little bit. He's going down! Okay, so just go back to the center. Maybe you don't need to do the start, and maybe turn it up a little bit. unless that's too loud, but yeah, right about there, and turn it up a little bit. And just listen to the first 3 shots. Those 3 fairly muffled, muted, let's say, to some extent. I mean, they're obviously obvious gunshots that people could hear in the area. And this is one, obviously, like a phone camera catching this audio, and this is from people on the side of that building, let's say, on the side of the building that Crooks was in. And
in the grass.
In the grass. And listen to the next rapid fire shots in. Much louder, closer to the people, closer. Second one's obviously louder, closer in the open, let's say, closer to the
reverberates
the audio.
It's less discreet. It reverberates.
It sounds like it's echoing off maybe trees. It's just
and buildings
louder. Whereas the first 3 are more muffled, but still can be heard. So that's and if you is there more? Hang on. Just go back to can you go back to the previous picture, the one before that, and just down on the bottom of the text actually. So if you click on that first one, just as more evidence, if you click on that first one, now this is just to explain what this is. This is, if you just show the video, show the whole, this is Crooks. Now, the video is below that top. That's not one video, right? There's 2. There's a still image on top, and the video is below. You'll see whenever it plays. But just go ahead and play it. Get ready to pause. Pause there. Oh, go back a little bit. Pause there. Oh, okay, got in the way. Okay, so basically that still on top is a zoom in of that part of the video. Now that's the only time, well, not the only time, but you just see him fleetingly a couple of times. But so the top is just a still and zoomed in of where he is. And there's an example of these are people on the other side of the building, and they're quite far back. They're about 30 to 40 yards back from that building, and they can see Crooks. And it looks like he may be closer to this side, which would be, the opposite side of where we've shown in the graphic. But in fact, you can see pretty much to the other end. You'd be able to see someone at that elevation, lying down like that, quite far across along the building, along the longitude of the building, past the center point. So.
This is probably partly why people confuse whether he was on the left or the right.
That makes it look like
he's on the near side, i.e. the left.
But if you look at the bottom part, where it's not zoomed in, you can see that he's actually quite far away.
He's quite small. He's quite
small and far away from the edge of the roof. The roof that's closest to the video is larger and obviously closer, and he's quite far away. So he's really is on the other side, other side of center of that building. So go ahead and play it, and so you have to. It's just that very first part. Actually, just go back to the start and just keep where you can see Crooks. Keep an eye on Crooks and listen to the shots.
See the first 3 shots.
That's them happening right there. There's a lot of screaming and stuff going on, but go back again.
He's not moving.
Watch him as 1, 2. And okay, it's very hard to see, but there's literally like no movement.
He's firing from an AR. There's no smoke, no blast, no.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily see any smoke from that distance or whatever, but you might see some flinching of him to some extent or whatever. Maybe not. Maybe he's super. I mean, people obviously gun enthusiasts will say you can be super still when you're firing a weapon, whatever. But anyway, that's just a piece of evidence. But if you just go back one, then back one to the text again, and just click on the bottom. That last link, it's just more audio from the same similar area to the left hand side. It's just but from a different camera, so different audio.
There's the trees,
there's the tree. There's that big tree that we showed. That these people are roughly in that area. But here's the audio from another one recording the difference in the sounds of shots. 3. And mean, that's
They're different.
that's not from one guy sitting on a roof that's just 40 yards away that everybody just saw.
Yeah.
And we're milling around in the general area. Those two shots are not from the same weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally 2 seconds between the first 3 and the second 5, and there's a very clear sound difference between the two. And the person who's recording it in both of those videos, and they're different videos, where the sound of the shot is very different, they don't move to any significant degree.
Yeah.
They're not running in one direction or other. They're kind of just like moving around. They're shaking of the camera and stuff, but that's it shaking in their hand. But they're not moving to any significant degree between the first 3 shots and the second 3 shots, which are separated by 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So obviously the person hasn't moved really at all in any way that would affect how the shots sounded.
Yeah.
But they sound extremely different. So there are 3 shots heard that are muffled, muted, and then subsequently 5 shots that are obviously that you would say they came from Crooks.
Yeah.
Because they're out in the open, they're close to where the person holding the camera is, and
Yeah.
you're hearing the full audio. Let's say full open audio of a gun within relative close proximity to you, where the other 3 they're either muffled or they've got. You'd explain it as the first 3 were the same gun with a silencer on it, but maybe that would even be there's too much noise for a silencer, but they're definitely different.
I think the thing that gave me something that gave me one idea that the difference in the 2 sets of volleys of shots could have been in the first set 3 taken from inside was that Chris Martinson, when he gave his audio analysis of one of these recordings, pointed out that the first 3 are more muffled, and the second have an extra sound. He was suggesting an echo off the buildings behind Crooks's position.
Yeah, well, they're louder.
And they're louder. So that it makes sense then that a lot of the sound is absorbed from being inside that building. But yeah, it could also be the effects of different weapons, different silencer on one of them.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
that inside-outside
Yeah.
effect could just be that simple. A lot of people are getting into the weeds by doing audio analysis from the mics, Trump's mic,
Trump's mic,
and the MSM mics over 150 yards downstream at the stage. But there you've got other sounds going on, and there are different effects, like cameras are picking up the actual bullets whizzing by and hitting off things.
And the sonic boom of the bullet whizzing by.
The last 2 videos we showed are people at the location where we're told one guy fired off all 8-9 rounds.
Yeah.
But there's still a difference between the first 2 sets.
Yeah, the ones trying to analyze the audio up from Trump's microphone or downstream of the bullets are just like they're having to contend with the crack of the sonic boom and all this kind of stuff, and then pick up the initial sound of the gun actually being fired, and then obviously very quickly afterwards you hear a sonic boom as the bullet whizzes past your ear, i.e. the microphone. But that doesn't happen if you're behind. The bullet isn't whizzing past you. You're behind the shooter.
You're behind or at the position.
You're upstream, essentially, or at the position of the. It's not passing you by, so you don't hear any cracks, any additional noise. All you hear is the sound of the gun being fired, and that's what we hear in those 2 videos. And they clearly show that there were 2 different locations from the gun. 2 different guns were being fired. There you go. And initially, our hypothesis is that it was in the building directly under Crooks, because that would then alert the snipers on the roof who are watching. That would alert them, the initial gunfire, the 3 shots from the window more or less directly below Crooks, would alert them to that direction or that position of gunfire, and then right above that they see Crooks. So who they're going to shoot? They're going to shoot Crooks.
They're going to shoot Crooks.
And not only that, but Crooks had fired. They had seen him fire or heard. Because, I mean, the Secret Service, well, watch the video, but the Secret Service snipers don't react until they don't shoot back. There is a 3rd shot, which is likely about, I don't know, it's quite quickly after there's a 6th shot. So you had 1, 2, 3, then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from Crooks. And then about 1 second after that, you hear 1 single shot, which is likely the snipers taking out Crooks.
Yeah.
So it all happened really within about 10 seconds.
And they've told us now it's the pair of snipers behind the building on Trump's left, so the ones furthest back.
Yeah.
The two guys who were
Right.
got a lot of flack for being at the front,
Right.
and not doing anything. Well, they may well then have been their line of sight may well have been obscured by a tree.
The first ones, yeah. But
But
ones
the
behind,
guys behind had a better vision,
Yes.
line of sight. So they took one shot, took him out,
yes.
and it would have been so obvious by then. We've seen the people recording, shouting, "He's there! He's there!" before he starts firing. You see in the foreground of both of those videos, everyone's standing around pointing. It's as obvious as day that there's a guy on the roof. So as soon as shots are fired, the counter sniper teams behind Trump literally have 100 signals saying, "Here,
This guy.
right here, everyone is right here."
There's a video of the guys in the front. On the front, these that we're talking about on the front building, there were guys behind them, on the building right behind them. But watch what happens. This is the really only video we have of them reacting. Now these guys didn't actually shoot the shooter because maybe they didn't have a clear line of sight or whatever. The guys behind did, and they took him out. But just play there.
That's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
You see that reaction?
Yeah.
You just play it again there. But so he reacts to the first. He acts almost like at that. Again, you have to realize he heard the sound before you hear the sound on the audio, because whatever audio is picking this up, I suppose it seems, I don't know it's the audio of the person filming it, I suppose, is picking it up, because that's the video we're watching. It's the audio of the person filming it, and the person in this video, as you can see, is actually he's a good bit away. I'm not sure what that is, maybe 20, 30 yards, whatever, back from Trump. So in terms of the orientation of the whole thing, the sniper is closer to the shooter's location. Here's the bullet first. Just play it again there and you'll see.
That's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
You see the way his head goes up?
His head went up before we hear
the bullet.
Yeah.
But he heard the bullet just a split second before we heard it.
Yeah.
So he hears it, immediately reacts, and notice what he does. Play it again.
His rifle points up as he takes a look around. Then he goes back into point of view.
His rifle is obviously pointed up. Go ahead.
That's a little bit old. That
Rifle is
chart.
pointed
That chart's a couple of
pretty much
months
straight.
old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
He pulls back and points down. So he's pulling it back and orienting downwards. So he's from where he is initially, he's like on a, roughly, maybe a slightly down, but roughly straight. I don't think he's looking at Crooks. He's looking. Those guys were.
He's looking at the ground floor window.
Further. No, he's looking. He's looking further afield. He's looking beyond that building. He's looking at the buildings behind. He's looking. And they've been doing that for a few minutes or however long beforehand. They've been just scanning the area. But as soon as he hears the shot, he has to orient downwards,
closer.
Because he's realised
it's closer.
It's closer and down from his location, because that building is taller than Crooks' building.
Yeah.
And we don't have any video of the guys behind actually. Won't really have any video at all of them actually doing anything on the building behind, but allegedly it's those guys that actually shot at him, because the slight difference, them being further back, maybe had a better line of sight because there was a tree. Crooks was kind of slightly obscured by a tree. But anyway, yeah. So
that's a wrap. that's the gist of our theory. What happened there? Yeah. Look, the rest is noise. I mean, it went from a ladder to 2 ladders to no ladders. The latest is that he climbed up via air conditioning units, and that he had a backpack and then no backpack, and his AR style rifle, which, I mean, is still vague. They won't tell us what it was. No close-up photos of it. I mean, when Kennedy was killed, they held up the gun, at least the fake gun that was in the schoolbook to Hosry, and said, he did this. But this time, I bet they had a whole running backstory to go with, and it's just completely botched by the fact that Trump survived. So no ladders. Instead, a rifle was his AR style gun was on the top of the AC unit, pre-positioned beforehand, which he collected on his way up by clambering up the AC unit onto the roof. He's got the attention of dozens, if not hundreds, of people who are telling police, who are checking it out. The police, it turns out, also did not climb on any ladders. There was a pair of them, according to Butler County Police Department. One boosted the other on the shoulders, I guess.
Mm.
He looks up, he says, yep, there's someone there. Crooks turns around, points his gun at him. This is never picked up on any of the footage. So I wonder about that story. And then it drops to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible how many things like that are declared confidently at the very beginning.
Yeah.
He climbed the ladder. Oh, we don't know how that happened. In fact, there were 2 ladders, one put by the police and one put by him. 2 no ladder. I mean, so many elements of these kinds of events start out as confidently reported facts. And a week later, they're not facts, you know? How many of these other things, like, you've seen the reports that he had a device on him when he was searched. He was apparently searched. He didn't actually go in. He didn't attend the rally, but he was in the area and searched by police, and he had a rangefinder. What you doing with that, son? Oh, you know, just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
Like, if that story is true, I mean, right there, it's another red flag for him being allowed to get into position. Mm-hmm. The other one is that he drew. There wasn't a single surveillance drone in the air. That has to be SOP at this point in all VIP type situations in the US of A in 2024. Come on. There's no surveillance drone except for one flown by Crooks. 1 hour before, he's got a drone flying, they tell us, in the exact site position he was in towards the stage so he could make sure. Okay. They, unless you know better, they still don't have any kind of political motive as to why he did it. No. He contributes to something Democrat when he's 18. Then he joins the Republican Party.
Well, it's left. It's obvious, right? It was Trump. Everybody hates Trump, right? So why? Of course,
everybody hates Trump. Yet he's one of them. That seemed to be how they were going to spin that. It was kind of like, reminded me again of Oswald. He was both a far lefty, pro-Cuba, pro-Soviet, and out giving flyers in New Orleans on behalf of a far right-ish type pro-Cuban nationalist group at the same time. So he's doing both. He's got no social media accounts whatsoever, except maybe he left a message on a gaming website forum in which he said, "You shall see the beginning of my career," or some shit like that. And now that's open to question. We're not so sure about that. 3 overseas crypto accounts. Again, you can't believe anything they say. They're just putting out lots of whispers. You can imagine that if it had gone down right, this would have made some kind of sense. They would have had a backstory. They'd be throwing it out there as quick as possible. They'd have to make some adjustments, but not this many. I've never seen them so tight with information after a potentially major scandalous event as this. In the background, there's rumors of an Iran plot because supposedly the Secret Service were tipped off that Iran might want to whack Trump 2 weeks beforehand. That maybe smacks of how you could see that played out, that the kid was like Oswald vis-a-vis Cuba, acting on behalf of a foreign power, but they pulled back from that plot because it,
Except they said there was no relation to this attack on Trump. They just wanted to throw that out there.
Right.
It reminds me of, this is Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was much more complicated affair. He was kind of sheep-dipped in a certain sense. And, he himself thought he was being a super spy and all that kind of stuff and working for the intel agencies and pretending to be this and pretending to be that, and that served their purposes because it mixed it all up where he's pro-Soviet, pro-Russian, pro-Cuban, but also far-right, anti-Russian. So, that's par for the course, that he himself would have been willingly involved in that because he wanted to be James Bond, but then that allows for a muddying of the waters, and you can pick whatever you want from his activities that you induced him to do to bolster your narrative after the fact. But it's got a lot more streamlined since then. That's a long time ago, and this guy Crooks obviously fits the profile. I mean, people say all these guys fit the profile for they're just like loners and antidepressants, smoking weed, that kind of thing. And they try and blame all these sociological factors on why these different lone wolf, so-called lone wolf shooters did what they did. But they always miss the profile that they all fit as well, which is someone who's can be easily manipulated by intelligence services, and the kinds of people who have on record being manipulated by intelligence services. Like we have the whole history over the past 20 years of FBI terror plots, where you had we have the FBI and other intelligences going around finding gullible, naive young men, mostly, to engage in all sorts of seditious behaviour, for which they then subsequently catch them in the act after having induced them to engage in these activities, and then catch them in the act of engaging in these activities and call it we have the FBI. The FBI has saved the country from a potential shooting or terror attack or whatever it might be. I mean, there's the whole
and there's maybe for some of them, what they do is convince them that they're taking part in a kind of training or practice operation that's actually, it's for national security. You want to be part of a team, you can join our secret team. Mm-hmm. And it'll be for patriotic reasons. So if it's not for money or material reasons, then they're convincing them that by having the remote detonator for the bomb, which isn't really a real one, and then you'll drive to this location, you'll help us to either catch someone else or to practice our own security drills, and then you'll be doing a bit for your country.
They can tell them basically.
Like this guy supposedly had a massive car bomb. His car was big to go.
That's usually a part of it.
And they gave some meat to it. Now they've been super skimpy with details, like show us the car bombs. No, okay, but they did show something. They it's supposedly taken off the rooftop. Fox News headline: new photo shows Trump shooter's cell phone and transmitter found near his body. What's this transmitter? If you scroll down, I think to second photo, first second. There it is. There. So. It's a smartphone they found on the roof next to. There's another device. What do they describe it? A transmitter. So I scroll up a bit. Maybe it's described here. Yeah. A remote transmitter belonging to Crooks found near his body. The grey 12-button remote and the smartphone were recovered from the roof. The remote is believed to have been linked to an explosive device inside Crooks' car, but it never detonated. God, I mean, what was that supposed to serve? He's going to survive that and then, or not. Maybe he meant to do it at the same time. But of course, he may not have meant any of that. He may indeed have been aware that he was possessing a transmitter and believed that it would set off a bomb, but it's just like,
yeah,
it's curious what details, what kind of factual evidence they will provide and what they won't. Like, we haven't got any of the basics covered yet, but they want you to know there was a detonator to a bomb.
Yeah. Like an example I was talking about there a minute ago is this, and it's from 2009. 2009. How long ago is that? 15 years? So I wrote this in 2009. It's just one example of many different articles that I wrote at the time on this topic. I'm just looking through it. It was an article basically about what's the terrorist threat, debunking the terrorist threat or exposing the terrorist threat. If you just go down to the picture of the black dudes on the left, like that right there. So I just said that I talked about abroad, about terror plots abroad, and then I said at home it was sufficient for US politicians to repeatedly invoke 9/11 and to issue regular terror threat alerts. From time to time, however, they employed the same tactics used abroad and recruited mentally unstable individuals to flesh out their perverted homegrown terrorist reality. One such case was that of the Miami terror cell back in 2006. That was 3 years previous to when I was writing. This slightly deranged group of 5, and this is, officially what they were, Christian, Zionist, Muslim martial artists, martial art immigrants, who called themselves the Sea of David, were quietly living in a warehouse in Florida, awaiting for the fulfillment of the biblical end times prophecy, when one day an undercover FBI agent came along and offered them $50,000, initiated them into Al-Qaeda, complete with an oath swearing, provided them with military boots and a video camera, and suggested that they wanted to blow up certain government buildings in the Sears Tower in Chicago. So the leader of this group, a guy called NewsReal Baptiste, who needs psychiatric help according to his father, and even Justice Department officials acknowledged the group did not have the means to carry out the plan. The Justice Department unveiled the arrests with an orchestrated series of news conferences in 2 cities, but the severity of the charges compared with the seemingly amateurish nature of the group raised concerns among several libertarians who noted that the group had no weapons, no explosives, and yet the government considers the arrests a major announcement. And then community activists familiar with the group said that they bought them boots. The guys couldn't afford their own cameras, so the federal government bought them cameras, rented them cars when they needed to go downtown in order to take pictures of their supposed targets. And the guys provided the FBI informant with a list of things they needed in order to blow up these buildings that the FBI informant suggested they blow up. But in the list, they didn't include any explosives or any materials that could be used to make explosives. So now everyone in Liverpool is joking that the guys were going to kick down the FBI building with their new boots because they didn't have any devices which could have been used to explode. And yet, despite all that, the mainstream media reported it as 5 Miami men convicted of Sears Tower attack plot. That's the kind of stuff that people got. Like, people got that headline, at the time. And that's just one of literally dozens and dozens and dozens of these kind of events that happened over the years, and they were all orchestrated by the FBI, effectively. And other intel agencies, I suppose, were involved in it too. So this is just by way of an example of how easy it is and how familiar these people are with this kind of manipulation of young, impressionable, stupid guys to get them to go to a certain place, be in a certain place at a certain time with certain equipment, whatever. And then they're the quintessential patsies, the fall guys. It's super, super, super easy. They're extremely well practiced at carrying out these kind of operations. So unless you understand all that and you see the evidence for it, and I mean the evidence that we have presented over the years and those kind of articles and stuff is, and I mean it's even in mainstream media, I mean the mainstream media quite a few years ago now, I think it was the New York Times basically wrote an article saying that most of the FBI terror plots were all created by the FBI. The terror plots that the FBI had solved were all created by the FBI themselves, and they all involved the manipulation of young, naive, vulnerable people to be the patsies. So that's a hardcore reality of the way the FBI and other intel agencies work and operate and have done for many, many years, and they've been doing it as far back as Lee Harvey Oswald and probably before that. So you're talking about decades and decades and decades of practice about how to manipulate young, vulnerable, naive men in particular to be patsies for their trumped up plots. I mean, in most of the cases, nothing happened, but obviously it's a very little difference between, manipulating a group of guys or one guy, whatever, to want to, join Al-Qaeda, join whatever, sign him in, take him through a process, give him equipment, and then put him down to lead him along the path to carrying out this terror attack, and then busting out of your cars and grabbing him and saying, see, terror plot failed that we created. There's a very little difference between that and just removing that last step of stopping the person and letting them go ahead, The only difference in the Trump assassination, between these kind of things that have gone on before, is that in most of the other cases, let's say not all of them, because there have been many mass shootings that involve the FBI, terror plots or mass shootings that where the people were obviously in one way or another manipulated by the intel agencies that actually killed a lot of people. But there have been many more where they stopped them. So the only difference between the ones in the past that they stopped and the one with on Saturday, which for me it just fits in with those terror plot organisations. It fits the same modus operandi. Crooks was a manipulated patsy. They could easily have just, if they wanted to, show how good the Secret Service was, or the FBI, or whoever were meant to protect Trump, or whoever were running security on that day in Pennsylvania last Saturday. They could have jumped out of the building, jumped onto the roof, grabbed Crooks, pulled him away, and then you would have had the media, the broadsheets, plastered with SS or FBI, whatever, saves Trump from assassination. But because in this case they wanted to let Crooks, quote unquote, go ahead and take the fall and be the patsy, and wanted to kill Trump, you see the opposite happens. They have to appear completely incompetent.
Right.
So in all the other ones, they appear like the stalwarts, the brave defenders of American freedom and protecting the homeland from evil terrorists. But in this one, because they didn't do that, they let it go ahead, they can't avoid appearing as completely incompetent. But of course they weren't. Well, they were in a certain sense. Well, that's another question, is why they didn't actually kill Trump. How could you miss? You had one job.
Yeah. Just before we speculate about that, the incompetence thing is and the paucity of any useful information, and the sense that there was a whole backstory prepared for the patsy, but they're being tight-lipped about it because it didn't go as planned. Mm-hmm. Maybe that.
Yeah, make it go away. They don't want to talk too much about it.
I know they're just completely confounded by it. So, what happened to make them so confounded? This should have been clean. Mm. As you said, they've done hundreds of terror plots. Some where it actually follows through into an incident, Boston bombings or whatever, and they're successful. They've learned the lessons of 1963, which is, for God's sake, don't let the patsy live and scream in the police station, I'm just a patsy. Otherwise, we'll have to send another bloody assassin, kill him. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have to kill him with some cancer agent, and it'll drag into a 6-year process. No, make sure it's bang, bang, bang. Patsy dead, case over. Mm-hmm. It's like once... I think if they've been able to think on their feet, the guys downstairs after the first 3 shots, oh shit, okay, quick, come out, guns blazing, and go up on the roof, and then we're the heroes, and we flip this around. But you see, they're so convinced. Well,
they can't change. They can't change it
because
in the moment like
the shot has already come in from the CSU across the way and killed the patsy. Mm-hmm. They just have to get out of Dodge. Mm-hmm. So the second part of the plan worked to perfection. One shot, bang, Crooks is dead. Mm-hmm. But what the hell happened with the pro shots? Trump is supposed to be dead at that point. Mm. This is where, like, how after decades of perfecting it, recent decades of terror plots, and no one being the wiser and just flooding the zone with bullshit. Eventually, like in your report there from 2009 and in subsequent investigations, it does eventually get to court and the judge throws it out. But then it didn't matter.
It doesn't inform public awareness. Obviously nobody out there actually takes any of that on board and makes 2 + 2 = 4. Nobody. There's a wealth of information that would lead any rational person to conclude that this is the way things operate, and this is And I mean, a lot of people, especially pro-Trumpers, are saying, yeah, they got him, they went after him. Who do they mean? Well, they mean the Democrats, they mean Hillary Clinton, they mean Nancy Pelosi. It's just this amorphous Democratic, evil Democratic Biden, they people, right? But it would be much more instructive for those kind of people to actually, much more helpful for them, I think, and for the world in general, for them to look into the publicly available information showing that it's not the DNC and the Democrats, whatever, may be tied into it, but a lot of the high level Republicans are involved in it as well, especially the career politicians are all, joined at the hip with intel agencies. You know what I mean? They're all aware of the influence of intel agencies. Who was it? Chuck Schumer said, talking about Trump, said the intel agencies have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you whenever you piss them off. Does that include assassination? What does the CIA do? Isn't the CIA associated with assassinations? Isn't that kind of their main bread and butter? So when Chuck Schumer tells CNBC or MSNBC or whoever it was, Richard Maddow, that when Trump was not taking the intelligence briefs in the morning, decided he wouldn't listen to the CIA's intelligence briefs and FBI's intelligence briefs every morning. He just would say, I don't want to see those anymore. That really pissed them off. And Chuck Schumer said, yeah, they're pissed off. And, if you piss them off, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. Now, given that both of those agencies, most people know, especially the CIA, their bread and butter is assassinations. Does one of those 6 ways from Sunday include assassinating him?
Well, look at it this way.
And in that case, it's the CIA. It's not the Democrats. It's not Joe Biden. It's not Nancy Pelosi. It's the CIA. And who employs it?
I think people know that. I think you don't see a massive backlash against Biden per se. I think people sense that. Now, if the would have been interesting if the headshot had been successful, I think the emotional knee-jerk reaction would have been to blame the White House directly. We'll never know now what was supposed to happen there. Chaos / managed chaos. That's open now. What was I going to say? 6 ways from Sunday. What the thing is, they tried the first 5 ways: Russiagate, impeachment, lawfare, financial suing, trying to drain his funds and his sons, and therefore his companies, therefore his resources. This was the last option. It's the day before the RNC opens. It was both desperation and controlled, in the sense that they wouldn't just willy-nilly put it together. They probably had thought about it for many weeks and just had to pick the right place, time, etc. So it would have been well planned in that respect. But at the same time, over the stretch of things, it's desperation because it's the last way they can get you before Sunday. Literally, it was a Saturday. Yes, they do assassinations. That's the thing. But on home soil, Jesus Christ, it's been 43 years since they last tried it. Assuming it was a deep state thing against Reagan. Of course, it's a long 61 years since JFK. There have been other assassinations in the meantime, but actually getting a presidential candidate, so they didn't want to do it. They could have at any time, easily, in the last 8 years. Plane goes down, heart attack, weapon, I don't know what. For some reason, it came down to, this is our last, let's do it this way. It's all set up. And it didn't work. Now, everyone, it's been on everyone's lips since the moment the news broke. Divine intervention, right? Trump turns his head a little. They say to the left. Ironically, it might have been that he was looking back and actually just turned back again to the front. Anyway, whatever. It clips his ear. No, that could not have been. We can rule out that was the idea, just to clip the ear. No, it was meant to kill him. Why wouldn't those first 3 shots have done the job? Divine intervention. I agree. Everyone thinks it's Jesus, though. What else was seen that day? Do you have a video of the...
This was seen that day.
Of the thing in the sky. There was no drone, remember? But there was something watching.
Click on the left one and zoom. Bring that up. That's a video winning up itself, yeah. Well, you can see it. Maybe. Can't enlarge that, no. Okay. Anyway. So there's something flying over.
That's not a great video because it's been manipulated, but...
one on the right.
That's it frozen, yeah, but...
Yeah. Well, zooming in and out type thing.
Somebody said there are 3 smaller orbs. Yeah. Around it. Again, though, that's just a still. The original video footage is like a flash, blink and you'll miss it kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it's been slowed down
this one
at a reasonable pace. I don't think that's it. That looks like it was taken at the same event, but I don't think that's it.
Well, in the actual video, it's hard to see. You kind of have to slow it down and zoom in and stuff. You know, you can look at the original video, but here's another one, and this may be the actual original video. But in the original video, it's it's kind of a little bit shaky and it's hard to see, and you do actually have to stop it and.
I don't think that's it. That's too spherical, and that's Trump. You can see in the still before that Trump's already down. This is something that passed by before the shots were fired.
Well, maybe
I'm looking for. I have it in the forum somewhere.
That one.
Yeah, this is 48, so it includes real time. That's slowed down half speed.
Yeah, because you can't see it otherwise. You just blink and you miss it, like you said.
Yeah.
Even there, it's hard to see.
There. That is super fast, considering this is already half speed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is slowed down maybe quarter or less. The strange sound effect is just Trump's speech super slowed. There you go. There you go. It's super slow speed, but it's still so fast that it's literally only caught in like 4 or 5 frames.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be an ovni, as the Mexicans say. There was surveillance in the sky, but it was limited to, let's say, the tier above the CIA and the Mossad. So they couldn't have their own drone there, but someone else did. Something to keep in mind, because, obviously this would have been a world historical event if Trump's head had been hit and he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. So UFOs are seen at all kinds of significant events. But there's also to keep in mind that there could have been influence on the pro snipers, on Trump to move.
Influence from who?
By that UFO.
UFO influencing people. The hand of God. You saying UFOs are Jesus?
I'm suggesting that a lot of the things that... It's like Diane Pasulka says. When you dig down at religious conversion experiences, transcendental experiences that people have had and are recorded all the way through history, including in the Holy Book itself, what the psychological characteristics religious experiences have overlap perfectly with the types of experiences people have in UFO encounters. So, yeah.
So Jesus is an alien. Is that what you're saying? We're not winning any brownie points with the conservatives here, Neil. That was Jesus in that spaceship. If it's a spaceship, if it's a UFO, then Jesus was flying it.
So look at it. Okay, the CIA / Mossad decided, okay, look, we've no other option. He has to go. It's all set up. But how do they miss? What do you mean they graze his ear? Like, it's impossible. And that's why the common sense blink. Everyone's first blink when they heard the news was, it's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but what is a miracle?
Aliens.
Not always, not necessarily, but there's a lot of overlap between miraculous happenings and encounters of the third kind.
So you're saying that aliens are good guys because they want to save Trump?
That's one way you could take that positive spin from it. Another one would be that...
Right, you're on record as having said the aliens are good guys. You said it in this show. I'm going to hold you to that.
Come on. All I'm saying, I'm trying to keep it open here. There's a higher plan that goes beyond what the deep staters want.
Yeah.
They want something in the here and now. They want Trump gone, and for the ideology, the plan, the current green / woke / Ukraine war / Gaza genocide to continue as is. We like it. We don't want him back at any cost. We tried the 5 ways. Now it's time for the 6. Tomorrow's Sunday. Let's get on with it. But something else, one level above in the chain of command, said, no. It's like 5 or 6 incidents during the Cold War when it was weapons hot for nuclear launches on each side. And there's a UFO experience, and the operator's like, oh my God, it was a bright light, and I don't know what happened. Next thing, all the silos went down. Is that divine intervention? Yeah, I suppose it is.
What do you mean by divine?
It's supernatural. It's above.
Well,
it's above divine, top secret. It's above your pay grade. You know.
Anyway, yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. But definitely, Trump.
You'll never get confirmation.
Trump was saved by Superman. I think Superman did it. I think Superman could move really fast. He could have moved through there, grabbed that bullet, pushed it out of the way, and you wouldn't have seen him. I'm with Homer Simpson, you know. I'm with Homer Simpson whenever he says, you know, when he's having a bad time, and he says, I'm not a religious man and I don't pray often, but if you're up there, help me, Superman. It was Superman. I mean, we've already covered it, but the Cheetle, what's her first name? Cheetle. Cheaty.
Karen.
Cheaty.
Karen. Probably Karen.
Cheaty cheater.
I mean,
super cheaty. Super cheater. I don't know.
This statement of hers about what she did was she first said that the police were inside the building.
Yep.
Then, as reported by New York Times, local agencies quickly issued statements disputing her accounts, saying that no officers were deployed in the building the gunman used. Cheetle has not spoken publicly since. And
so who was in the building? Because we think there was somebody in the building. But what about Trump? You know, since Jesus or Superman saved him. Go ahead, what?
One last thing.
Go on.
The building, the complex, AGR International Factory, International Inc. Did someone find out that it was owned by someone spooky? Did you hear about that?
No. Wouldn't be surprised, though.
I was trying to find out what the company, what the buildings and the warehouses are for, but I think it's just logistics. Yeah, bottle manufacturing. Anyway, no, I read it somewhere that it's like...
Yeah, well, maybe.
Owned by something like BlackRock, but then BlackRock owns everything.
Yeah,
so.
I wouldn't give much credence to that, because that implies, you know, then you have to go there then to some kind of influence over the Trump campaign of Trump's people, basically inside the Trump campaign, organising this rally at that place for the specific reason that the CIA had a front company there.
Right.
So it's there you're getting a bit. Anyway, yeah. So did Trump? Has Trump changed? Is he now a man of God? Is he peace and love? He's kind of like Gandhi now. Yeah, it's changed him. No.
Yeah,
He's
that's
touched by the hand of God, almost on his ear, and
well. He said, "I stand before you, thanks to the grace of Almighty God," in his
Yeah.
RNC speech.
yeah.
So-
But he was in Chicago yesterday at another rally in Chicago, and it seems to have been more of the usual, you know. What was it? He said stuff like, "I don't have much." I have some quotes from what he said. It was just basically more of the Trump we know, basically, you know. Calling Nancy Pelosi crazy, calling them a threat to democracy, you know, talking about immigrants, they're not going to send us their rapists anymore, etc., etc. All the stuff that the left hit him for, he basically was back on song yesterday. So I don't, you know, maybe that won't translate into action or whatever, but maybe he says something here. Have a listen to him here. This is, I think this is Chicago.
And as you're seeing, the Democrat Party is not the party of democracy. They're really the enemies of democracy. The parties of corrupt insiders like Whitmer, special interests, and the failed political class. That's what they are. Under our leadership, the Republican Party is now the party of the people. We're the party of hardworking Americans of every race, religion, color, and creed. We've become a very big party.
They're the corrupt, evil, anti-democracy people. So it's the same rhetoric, obviously. I don't think it's going to change. It certainly hasn't changed them. It's just public statements here. I mean, you could say this is the work of God. So it is. He has had a religious, but it's. I don't know. Maybe have a listen to this one. This could be. This is at Chicago as well, in Michigan. Not Chicago, Michigan.
To do it. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. I will not give 1 penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate.
It's
I will keep men out of women's sports day one. Day one. Signed up. Day one. How ridiculous is that? How crazy. That's like open border. I mean, there are things that are so crazy.
doing the work of the Lord there, no? So the question is, what's, you know, people think, oh, it's going to change him. He's going to be more soft and, you know, accommodating to the left and all that kind of stuff. To, you know, he's going to cut down the rhetoric and all this kind of stuff. But didn't people say, you know, for all these conservatives who, I don't think they expect that. Maybe the Democrats would like him to be more like that and stop the angry rhetoric and invective and stuff. But I mean, Jesus is coming with a sword, no? Isn't that what they say? Jesus is coming with a sword. He's coming to smite the wicked and restore righteousness to the country. So I mean, depends what you mean by, you know, what's righteous and what's not, and, you know, what is doing God's work. You know, if you think that Trump has some kind of a religious conversion and do you think that would make him more passive and more accommodating and softer spoken, or would it make him more, you know? Yeah. How does Jesus affect you whenever he saves you, when he saves a bullet from hitting your ear? You know, how does that affect you? You know, when Jesus enters your ear, let's say, rather than your heart, what effect does that have on you? It depends on what you think Jesus is all about, I suppose. You know.
I guess makes you more you. So whatever's in you becomes stronger and amplified. I mean, his first instinct was to get up and raise a fist and say, fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
That's not exactly peace and love. It's, literally, I'm here with a sword.
Yeah, so maybe Jesus wasn't a passive sandal wearing yuppie, like hippie, if he even existed.
This could be the beginning of a backlash.
Yeah.
Where, and maybe I'm not going to clutch my pearls about it. Maybe it won't, be anywhere near as tyrannical as the phantasm of the left makes it, where it's like freaking, it's that dystopian movie where the women all have to wear the red and, it's a backlash in the sense that there's a mighty wellspring of desire for common sense to come back. And Trump just articulates it well, and he probably will succeed in manifesting that return to normalcy.
Well, are they going to kill him again? Twice. Die another day.
They could. Like I said, they could have killed him at any point in the last 8 years, but I don't think so. I think we'll see a shifting of focus in the establishment, both in the US and /globalists. The non-national aligned. We are people of the world types who just see it all as one big market for them to do their thing in. I think they'll work with Trump. Maybe we saw that hand being played in the selection of Vance, J.D. Vance. I'm 50-50 on whether he is a MAGA guy. In 2016, he voted for Evan Mullen as an independent, and Vance was a never Trumper. Who in 8 years, apparently Vance himself has had a conversion experience. Evan Mullen, if you don't remember, was a CIA guy, basically. Total plant. I noticed at the RNC, Senator Lindsey Graham and Rupert Murdoch sitting together comfortably in their VIP lounge atop the arena. Didn't look. They looked like, they wouldn't have turned up if they were that aghast by what's about to turn, I think they'll just shift around. We're obviously this topic and where we're getting in, it's completely unknown, but that psychic guy, the American guy who foresaw 4 months ago a failed assassination on Trump, where he described, again, 4 months ago, that Trump would be narrowly missing an assassination attempt because a bullet would whiz past his right ear. He was seeing shit. Anyway, in a follow-up, he says, Trump's going to win the election, but then great calamity is going to come down on the country in the form of an economic/financial crash. That's something that we've, tried to factor into things for years, that the economy, the markets are so contrived that it can indeed be pulled, demolition job. That is definitely on the card. Would you rather have, you yourself have suggested that if Trump were in the White House when that happened, you could crush or significantly hit everything he stands for.
Well, you could hobble his presidency.
For a generation. Well, yeah, you could hobble his generation, what he can do here and now, but you can also tarnish. Well, you can write the history books as, well, he came in and then the economy crashed.
Maybe later, but not immediately. People wait for it until it gets over or whatever, and then they'd want more MAGA, right? Not going to forget about MAGA just because there's an economic crash, assuming it doesn't. Assuming it's not the crash to end all crashes type thing, or to end all civilization as we know it. But yeah, definitely something like that. Another pandemic, disease X that may tie in with an economic collapse. Because obviously there was, it had supposedly had a bit of a negative impact on the global economy last time, the COVID slash the COVID quote unquote pandemic, but another one might just be too much to bear for the economy, and then it all goes into, and then we've got like Trump's faced for 4 years with most of the 4 years with a pandemic, a new pandemic that's even worse than the last one, and also an economic collapse. And yeah, he's not going to do very much. Not going to be making. No, there's going to be no making America great again under those circumstances.
I think we got it. I don't think it's a coincidence that this global IT outage happened 4 days after.
Scotty's going to tell us what actually happened there in one paragraph or less, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
So basically, you got your company CrowdStrike. They do corporate security software, and they pushed an update out, and any computer running Windows 10 was borked. It crashed, blue screened, got stuck in a boot loop where it just kept blue screening over and over again.
Literally all computers running Windows 10.
No, running CrowdStrike.
Yeah, well, they running
which had CrowdStrike as
their security software.
Right.
And the interesting thing was they came out and said right away, like, right, it's all computers running Windows 10 that have Falcon, the CrowdStrike software, they seem to be crashing. They didn't say it's computers running Windows 10 with NVIDIA graphics cards and blah, 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 like a Windows update would be. So it seemed to be a rather severe bug. And of course, they immediately came out and said, well, this was not hacking, which of course they would say because they're a cybersecurity company.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were hacked, they go bankrupt.
Right.
But the question kind of remains. I know there was that Voorhees or whoever he is on Twitter, he said it was like a null pointer.
Google whistleblower.
Yeah, the Google whistleblower. And then some other guy came on there and they had kind of like a C++ like weenie measuring contest.
Right.
Like my C++ is better than yours. And
Yeah.
my C++ is horrible. I haven't programmed in C++ in 25 years. So I understand the basics, and the whole like null pointer thing and what they were talking about is not really what's important, because when something crashes, what's important is that you have thousands of systems crashing. The why of it, I mean, obviously that's the question. Was it hacking? Was it incompetence? But like either way, the fact is like it took down a lot of systems. Initially they said in America that not very much stuff went down. But then I think it was on our forum, somebody said, yeah, in Boston we had problems. And yeah, so...
So the question is, was it deliberate?
CrowdStrike. Tell us about CrowdStrike.
Well, we know about CrowdStrike, yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's...
DNC.
You guys know more about CrowdStrike than I do.
Yeah, well, people know about CrowdStrike that it was basically the company that was tasked with, uncovering the DNC hacking scandal at Russia, and they concluded that yes, apparently. Initially, supposedly it was claimed that they said that Russia had actually hacked the DNC and stolen all those emails. That
So the FBI leaned on CrowdStrike to say that it was Russia, and then years later, CrowdStrike actually said no, it was just circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, we didn't see
which the FBI
really
gave us.
Right, exactly. It was like Hunter Biden's laptop is not is Russian disinformation.
A kind of contrived feedback
no,
loop.
it's not. Yeah, it's something for the moment, so we get the headlines out, and then afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, those headlines, they're all wrong. Actually, it was what we said was not true at all. But too late, we said it already. So anyway, so put on your conspiracy hat, and is there any benefit to anybody anywhere from doing that kind of thing yesterday? Was there any not obvious, but even theoretical benefit to? Could it be some kind of a testing of vulnerabilities, or is it just one of those things where someone messed up?
I think it's probably like, I don't think somebody just messed up, because like it's like, when was the last time that everybody knows Windows Update, right? In recent years, Windows updates, like you cry every time a new one comes in, because it's going to screw your computer up somehow, right? But when was the last time Windows released an update that like crashed everybody's computer around the world?
Right.
Like never.
Yeah.
So like when you look at this and then you go on top of that, you're talking about like, this is a cybersecurity company that's securing governments and you got the FBI involved there. You got the political thing. You got
Airlines.
airlines, and it's like, how could such a bug actually get by? It's like,
All the
okay,
testing.
if all the Windows 10 computers were crashing, right? Did they not just take it and put it on one Windows 10 computer and say, hey, does this update work? I mean, that's what these companies do, is like,
Test,
there's
yeah.
manual code review, like with human eyeballs, and then they automate things.
Yeah.
And it's all automated. Like, they test the heck out of stuff. So I find it very, very, very difficult to believe that this was just an accident, or
So if it wasn't an accident, do you
Why-
have any ideas why it would
see, that's,
harder?
I think probably because to put on my super conspiratorial hat,
Super hat, a really big tinfoil hat.
I found it totally fascinating that you have like the attempt on Trump's life, and literally 5 days later,
Yeah.
here comes CrowdStrike,
Right.
which was related to Russiagate and Trump
And Hillary.
and Hillary and all that stuff. And then you're going, oh my God, like, the internet is crashing, it's cyber Armageddon. And okay, well, no, it's not, because by now most of the systems are back to normal. A couple
Right.
days, but that was a little bit too weird for me. So whether it's some kind of symbolic thing or it was if it was intentional, it would be a warm up for something bigger. And they've been talking about cyber pandemics and all that stuff for ages. So
Yeah, well, since 2020, that freaky German guy, what's his name? Klaus Schwab.
Klaus
I almost
Schwab.
forgot him.
Yeah. Well,
First lockdown. I want to sit down, children. I want to tell you about the coming cyber pandemic.
yeah.
I'm like, what?
But there's someone in the chat there said RJ Dizzy Freedom says, of course it was deliberately done. The name of the company is CrowdStrike, for fuck's sakes. Well, yeah, of course we know that, but we want to know why it was done. That's what we're talking about. Why was it deliberately done? What was the point? Was it what was achieved by it? That's the interesting part. We don't actually know it was deliberately done. You'd only conclude that it was deliberately done if you can only claim, reasonably claim or coherently claim that it was deliberately done if you can explain why it was deliberately done and what tangible benefits it was to the people who deliberately did it, why they did it.
Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe the CIA is feeling really lame right now, and they wanted to remind the world what they can do.
yeah, I think you kind of have to wait and see, because you got Klaus Schwab, you've got like that idiotic video back during the COVID times when you with the British sounding guy going like, oh, you have to be worried about cyber pandemics, and you're going like, what? So obviously this is part of the idiotic plans they come up with in back rooms and stuff, and it may just be like, okay, here, let's do a little test and see what happens. Kind of as a warm up. Maybe it was related to the Trump thing somehow, like just general chaos or something. But I think we just have to wait and see, and that at some point it'll become pretty obvious that right, that must have been a warm up for what they just did.
Yeah, financial shenanigans.
It doesn't bode well in any case.
Yeah. It's a coincidence of the two events within a week of each other that makes you Anyway, something that might be more easily predicted by you, Neil, is how long Biden is going to be in the White House.
As David Sachs pointed out, first they tried to cajole him, and then they spoke a bit more firmly. Now we're into blackmail territory. Biden is digging in. They've got dirt on him. That might start coming out. Because if you won't budge, I think they'll push him out. Don't they let him actually stand, even though they probably acknowledge that Trump is going to win. They can't rig it up the wazoo.
To the point where they would let Biden win against Trump in the current context. Yeah, the Telegraph has this article, this headline saying that Biden is delaying stepping down until after Netanyahu meeting, because Netanyahu, the butcher of Gaza, is in Washington this coming week, and the report says the president Biden did not want to give the Israeli Prime Minister the satisfaction of him standing down in the week of the Washington visit. Interesting.
Yeah.
So apparently it would be a satisfaction for Netanyahu to see him stand down in the week that he's there, almost like as if to say, Netanyahu's visit pushed him over the edge. Like, Netanyahu is the God that Biden said would be necessary for him to step down. God himself would have to come and tell me to do it. That's what Biden said. Then Netanyahu comes, and the day after meeting Netanyahu, he steps down and says, oh, well, there's your God, right? Bibi's God.
That would be an
Yahweh.
interesting, because it's been on my mind this week that, and I think we got a reminder by Israel's bombardment of Yemen in response to its drone attacks
Yesterday.
that Israel has a major role to play in what comes next.
Mm.
I think they accept Trump. I think he's not their first choice, but Trump's saying all the right things. He's being thoroughly pro-Israel, as always, as he always has been. The Christian Zionist right in the United States is still a major lobby unto itself, really, in addition to whatever Israel wants. Yeah. I think the Middle East is tangential and important to maybe to what happens to Biden, but also to Trump and his presidency.
Speaking of Israel, and Russia has the presidency of the Security Council, is it? Or whatever, at the UN, anyway, for the next 6 months. And they've been at the UN recently. And this is an interesting comment on the situation in the Middle East by Lavrov, which is, you should always pay attention to that. Lavrov said on the sidelines at the UN recently that Israel provokes Hezbollah with the aim of dragging the American army into a major conflict. It is Hezbollah that acts with great restraint. Israel, not Iran, is interested in escalation, while the Russian Federation is doing everything to avoid escalation in the Middle East. I cannot make this any more clear. The Russian Federation will not remain an observer of an escalation and will take its responsibilities. Look at Syria as an example. I says basically again, Iran is not interested in regional escalation. Israel is, and again, Hezbollah is acting with extreme restraint. But Israel wants to provoke them into a full-scale war. That's from the mouth of Lavrov, Russian foreign minister. And the most interesting part for me was, I cannot make this any more clear. The Russian Federation will not remain an observer of any escalation and will take its responsibilities. And look at Syria as an example. What does that mean, Neil? Interpret Lavrov's diplomatic speak there. What's he hinting at?
A major Russian intervention in the region.
Smacking Israel.
Or checking it somehow.
Checking Israel.
The obvious route open to them is increasing strategic and military cooperation with Iran. Another one,
But
though,
in the event of
is
an escalation. The event of an escalation he's talking about here.
Oh, okay, but
Direct action, hot war,
yeah,
problems,
well,
issues for Russia's interest
remember
in
the
Syria.
mad threshold. You've got to think a few steps before.
Well, yeah.
First. You yourself would say that.
But Russia
The other one would be that Syria gets a massive bolstering in its capabilities, because Russia has artificially kept it suppressed these last
10 years.
9 years, 2015. So they would be first steps. But if he's thinking, look to Syria as an example, as in Syria is not the example, there will be an additional example. You're talking about a major Russian landing force, but it's not going to be in Israel. It's going to be in Yemen.
No, they're talking here about a Hezbollah, an escalation of the war in the Middle East with Hezbollah. And specifically talking about, take Syria as an example, Russia will not remain an observer and will take its responsibilities, i.e. defend its interests, in the event of an escalation in the conflict, which obviously would primarily, at this point in time, as Lavrov said, about referring to Hezbollah and Israel provoking Hezbollah, that we're talking about a war open war between Hezbollah and Israel, which would, likely extend to Syria and Iran, and thereby threaten Russian interests, and that Russia would defend those interests in one way or another.
Okay, so what would Russia do?
That's what I'm asking you. That was the question.
It doesn't have the means to fight a two war front. This is why Ukraine and Syria blew up at exactly the same time in 2013. Russia cannot do both. That's why the CIA and the Mossad said, we'll fuck them over by doing both at the same time and make them choose one or the other. Mm-hmm. So if they escalate in the region, Russia can send, it doesn't have the means to send the similarly sized intervention as it did in Ukraine. All it can do is increase military cooperation with its partners.
We're not talking about troops on the ground here, but like you said, I think you were probably closer to the truth at the beginning, that you would let Russian support, military support of, tactical military support in the sense of defensive military support for Syria, and checking Israel would probably be the most likely explanation of what he's getting at there. So he's basically attempting to stay. He's talking about Russia is trying to prevent escalation. Hezbollah doesn't want escalation. Iran doesn't want escalation. Israel wants escalation. So we would effectively, if Israel tries to go too far and really ignite a war in the Middle East, that we will take steps to make sure that it doesn't get there, because you would be threatening our interests if you were to try and ignite a war in the Middle East and bring in America. So we're going to be the kind of the moderating factor in that respect, and the way you moderate somebody getting out of control in a conflict is make them think twice about engaging in that conflict, because they'd get more of their ass handed to them than they expected by way of Russian supplied defensive capabilities. Probably.
Yeah, someone comments in the chat, they've already provided Hezbollah anti-aircraft weapons like Panzer from Wagner. I don't know about that, but yeah, Hezbollah would be, or it would reach Hezbollah easily via Iran if they didn't want to be seen. It's the elephant in the room, though. Like, Russia has the same problem the United States has, in the sense that if it is ever seen as a problem in the United States, it's hard to tell at the top levels that everyone else has. What would Israel do if we seriously pissed it off?
Yeah. Everybody's scared.
They're a mad dog. Do we want to test how mad they are?
Everybody's scared of the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic?
Well, you love them and fear them.
How many anti-Semitisms do I get out of 5 for that? Yeah.
6.
6 out of 5, wow. So, we'll leave it there at 6 o'clock. At least here in this part of the world.
Trump lives. Jesus loves him. Second gunman somehow failed. Actually, the first gunman. We'll never hear why, but we think we know where he was. So he should have hit.
Yep.
It was close.
But somebody saved Trump.
Super close.
Somebody saved Trump for reasons unknown, as yet to be revealed, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear about that new... There's a new... I think it's a lefty kind of thing, but whatever. It's glass coffins. The idea of having glass coffins. Do you think it'll be a success?
Yeah, sure. It worked for Snow White. She lived again.
Well, remains to be seen. But on that hilarious note, we're going to leave it there, and hope you have a good week. We'll be back next week with another show on whatever madness has been going on between now and then. So till then, have a good one. Yeah, take it easy. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye, all.
Can't stop the signal now.